Well, site selection is the process of examining multiple options and assessing their relative advantages and disadvantages. Our monthly Eye on Economic Development segment continues with part 4 of our 4-part series, taking a deeper dive into site selection and a look at the aftermath, what happens after the deal is done. I'm pleased to be joined, as always, by national site selection firm KSM Location Advisors CEO Tim Cook and President Katie Culp. And welcome, as always.
Thanks, Gary.
As we conclude our deeper dive into economic development and projects, and after the deal is done, so all the hoopla, all the activity, all the back and forth, the deal's done, the company is at the location. What types of things? One, I know, is workforce. You know, is the workforce that was promised there of quality? Is that, how big of an issue is that?
I think for most operations, that's the most critical issue. And you know, you can make your best guess based on a lot of good information and questions, but does it pan out the way you think it's going to? Because if it does, you have a very successful operation. If it doesn't, it may not last for very long.
Yeah, and promises are made. Promises, I guess, would be a proper term for quality of life, quality of place issues. And is that another one that, you know, it sounds great, but once the company gets there, that's when the rubber kind of meets the road? You know,
all these communities, they love what their story is. They want to tell that. It's a sales job. They're trying to put, you know, the best foot forward. But as Katie mentioned, you eventually have to take a step back and say, is this really what we thought we signed up for when we made the commitment to locate at that location?
Is it, I mean, it's a business deal, obviously, but in some respects, it's a leap of faith.
Yeah. Absolutely, it is. And then, you know, did it turn out the way we thought? And especially for companies that have multiple operations, you have something to compare it to. And so a lot of our clients will say, we don't know about this one operation in Georgia or, you know, where have you. And it's like, those are the first to close.
Does reputation have anything to do with the reputation of a state or of a region on economic development projects? Does that come into play at all?
Oh, I think it very much does, don't you?
Yeah, I think you see it both ways. You have a good reputation and that attracts you. One area where Indiana has, I think, benefited, people have low expectations here, and when they come to a city like Indianapolis, they're like, wow, this is a great city, we had no idea. So I think you see it in both directions.
As you look at companies going into a location, perhaps with an eye to expansion, so that initial experience could lead to expansion, or maybe the flip side, not so much.
Yeah, if you have a company that's got locations in multiple states, they might go into a state for the first time, and it's kind of a dress rehearsal. Do we like this community? Do we like this business climate? And we might do additional projects here, or if this was a bad experience, maybe we made a mistake, and this will be the only deal that we do in this location.
How about the relationship with state and local government? Incentives are an important part of economic development deals. So once the deal is done, then the state and or local entity, they've got to deliver, right?
Yeah, you know, I mean, when I was on the public sector side, you are stretched so thin, you have few resources. Understandably, they're very attentive until the deal's landed, but then it moves on through the administrative process, right? And that's where so often what a lot of companies anticipate doesn't come to fruition. Maybe it's a lot more difficult or bureaucratic to get certain incentives than they originally thought, and that's where reputation comes in again, I think, because did they do what they said they were going to do? Were they business friendly? And if not, you kind of have a taste in your mouth if you were expecting one thing and disappointed by results.
Yeah, because Katie and I have worked all over the country. We have a pretty good idea when we go into a state. A client will say, is this everything that it seems to be advertised? And then we can give some editorial comment and say, I wouldn't get too excited about this because they're going to claw back or whatever the case might be, more than they're ready for.
So are there instances, I assume there are, where whatever the issue might be, zoning variances or whatever, that a company can get in and locate it expecting you know, to get these things, and maybe as the process happens, it's tougher to get, or surprise expenses or charges pop up?
Oh, we have so many clients who have, you know, we think everything's done. They've vetted it initially with planning and zoning folks and with economic development officials, and then they announce, you know, contracts are finalized, and then it's, oh, surprise, by the way, since you're near this road, we want you to pay for an extra $1 million, $2 million, or, you know, put it, or you have to do this much extra to get your parking garage approved or what have you. And it's not so much that, obviously, it's within government's purview to require that. But if it's a surprise, that's when it becomes problematic.
You know, we've touched on a lot of things in this series: incentives, analytics, quality of place, after the deal. Kind of put a bow on this series. How does Indiana stack up with the competition?
You know, I think as we've seen with Amazon and stuff, for the right size project, we look great on data analytics. That was one area we covered. I think we do pretty middle of the road, but pretty good on incentives. We talked about quality of life. That is an elusive definition to some degree. So we do well there.
We've invested a lot of effort the last 10 to 15 years on cost of living and cost of doing business. We're very strong there. We're one of the tops in the country. But now I think we need to focus on quality of place and some of these other things that are softer that do cost money. We'll take a commitment at the legislative level to make some of that happen.
And I think if you put a focus on economic development on Halloween costumes, that KSM, that you two guys, let's take a look. This is a follow-up story. The last time you were on, we talked about you were going to the Halloween party. And there you are, and you won, right?
We did for the second year in a row. I mean, I don't want to brag.
Okay, I think we know what it is. Very quickly, who were you guys?
It was a stretch for me. I was the Wicked Witch of the West.
And I was the man without a heart.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Tim Cook, Katie Culp, thanks very much, and congratulations on the win, too. Very impressive.
Thanks,
and
Gary.
We'll be right back.